Welcome back. Hundreds of demonstrators gathered outside the U.S. Consulate in Sandton today to voice their support for Palestine and Iran and to condemn what they call Western-backed aggression by Israel. The picket follows weeks of heightened global tension and growing calls for solidarity. Newzroom Afrika's Humanitarian brings us this report.
It was an emotionally charged day as dozens gathered in front of the U.S. Consulate. Organizers say Iran is suffering at the hands of nations that refuse to see its independence and sovereignty.
So Iran is punished by the American and the Israelis for supporting the anti-imperialism, anti-apartheid movements and the resistance that we have in the whole world. By invading to Iran, they showed that America and Israel is the same and is the same identity. And actually, Israel is the 54th state of America.
He says the offense by Israel against Iran is not about nuclear.
Well, of course not. Of course not. That is just an excuse because the whole world knows that Iran does not have nuclear atomic bomb. Yes, we have a nuclear technology for peaceful, use. And the irony of that is that Iran is a member of NPT. It's a member of Atomic Agency, International Atomic Agency. And we have been abiding with the rules that they have. We told them that we don't have. Even the Security Council of the United States last week, they have confirmed that Iran is not after. The Supreme Leader also has mentioned that we are not here to produce nuclear bomb, but Israelis has 90 warhead atomic bomb.
The South African Communist Party has made its stance clear on the matter.
It is in this regard that as the SACP, we fully support Iran in this regard. We support equally the right of Palestinian people to self-determination. We condemn Israel's continued aggression. And we call on our country to stop all relationship with Israel and never to even accept any pressure from the Americans who are pushing them not to cut ties with Israel. We have to cut ties with this apartheid regime.
EFF Member of Parliament Carl Niehaus says Iran must continue defending itself.
We call on the Iranian government, the revolutionary Islamic government of Iran, to continue to fight against apartheid Israel, to send the missiles in. Let them rain on apartheid Israel. Let the Israelis, the Zionists, feel what it is like to be bombed. For years they've killed the people of Palestine. For years they've committed genocide. For years they have believed that they are invincible.
Protesters say America's support for Israel makes it complicit in Palestinian suffering. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Humanitarian in Sandton.
We're now joined by Jeenah, who's a senior researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. So the world is watching as this escalation between Iran and Israel is currently taking place. From your view, how have the relations between these two countries evolved over the years?
Well, until 1979, Iran and Israel had very good relations. Iran, Israel, the United States were kind of axis of, with very good relations between the three of them, security arrangements, etc. This was when Iran was ruled by a Shah. In 1979, after the revolution, the new state, the new regime cut ties both with Israel and with apartheid South Africa. And since 1979, the relations between Iran and Israel have not been good. Iran has made certain bellicose statements about Israel. Israel regards Iran as an existential threat and has undertaken, even before now and before last year, a number of operations within Iran, cyber warfare, but also assassination of scientists, etc. And then last year we saw, for the first time since 1979, a kind of direct exchange where Iran fired into Israel, but very well choreographed in April and then in October again. And since Friday last week, what we saw was, I mean, the Israeli attack on Friday was completely unprovoked, of course, illegal under international law. Israel claims it's a preemptive strike. There's no such thing in international law as a preemptive strike. There was no threat, no impending threat from Iran on Israel. And their first actions against Iran were all illegal. Attacking and bombing nuclear installations is illegal, banned under international law. Assassinating academics, scientists, etc., is illegal under international law. And so we saw then from Friday last week until today, just over a week later, that the exchange and the conflict between the two has been incrementally increasing. And we expect that it'll get even worse in the next days and weeks.
You make mention of the direct exchange by Iran to Israel with regards to now them retaliating on some of these attacks. And in the clip that we saw earlier at the rally that was held in Sandton, we saw EFF's Carl Niehaus calling on the Islamic government to continue, saying that for years the Israel government has believed that they are invincible. Does this bring in a turn in terms of now countries retaliating to countries such as Israel?
Well, in the case of Iran, this is April last year was the first time that Iran directly attacked Israel. This was after the Iranian consulate in Damascus, in Syria, was bombed by Israel. Following a whole number of incidents in Syria when Israel bombed Iranian troops, etc. This was the first direct attack. And then in October, after Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps leaders were assassinated in Lebanon and the head of Hamas was assassinated in Iran itself, in Tehran, they launched that second direct attack. So this, what we're seeing now, is in a sense the first real engagement between the two. And now it's unlike the two last year, April and October, this one is actually quite serious. Iran is now, it seems, with a carefully kind of planned retaliation against Israel. Up to now, 8 days later, almost 9 days later, Iran's response has been, they seem to be treating Israel as being perpetrating individual acts of aggression against Iran, and so they're responding each day to these acts of aggression. Iran is not yet, it seems to me, treating this as an all-out war. That's why they said as soon as Israel stops, they will stop. Once it reaches the point where they regard it as a war, I think that's when things get messy.
The issue of nuclear seems to be at the heart at this point of the tensions. Do you think it's justified for Israel to blame this on Iran's nuclear program? And also, I mean, we heard there in the clip one saying that Israel is clearly the 54th state of the USA and that there are no nuclear atomic bombs in Israel. Could this be another situation of weapons of mass destruction 2.0?
So Israel, of course, possesses nuclear weapons, anything from 90 to 400. No one really knows the number. And as one of the people said in your earlier clip, Israel's not a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. There are no inspections there, etc. Iran, on the other hand, is a signatory. Iran does have a nuclear program, but it's a civilian nuclear program. Iran has said repeatedly from 1979 that they have no intention of developing a nuclear weapon. American intelligence has said, the head of the intelligence services, Tulsi Gabbard, said that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. They don't believe that they are developing a nuclear weapon, even though they're enriching uranium, etc. So this is, yes, we might say it's that WMD 2.0, except in this case, there isn't even suspicion, really. Everyone that knows anything knows that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. And Iran is willing to guarantee that they will not develop a nuclear weapon. Now, the nuclear issue, as you say, is at the heart of this, because the reason, frankly, why Israel attacked Iran last week, Friday, was because from the beginning of these talks between the Trump administration and the Iranians a couple of months ago, the Israeli government has been completely opposed to these talks. They did not want a negotiated solution with Iran, and the reason for that is that they want if there was a negotiated solution, you'd find a number of sanctions against Iran being lifted. Yes, Iran's been under sanctions for 45 years now, and if that happened, the Iranian economy will improve, the state will improve, etc. And Iran wants to see a weak. Israel wants to see a weak Iran. So that attack last week, Friday, was 2 days before the 6th round of talks, which was supposed to have happened this past Sunday between the Americans and Israelis and the Iranians. And it seemed that there was actually positive movement in those talks, and it could, there's some sticking points here and there, but it could have reached some kind of a solution with another couple of rounds,
Right.
where they would agree. And Israel didn't want that to happen. So what they did was completely undermine any negotiated solution on the nuclear issue.
Naim, very quickly, just before I let you go, the UN's refugee agency has said that should these attacks continue, we should be looking at triggering a population in terms of movements between these two countries. What humanitarian crisis do you think will be left with should these escalations continue in the way that they are?
Well, for now, I think from Iran, there isn't a great humanitarian crisis. In fact, today there was a news item that some of the Arab Gulf states offered Iran some aid, and Iran said, we don't need it, send it to Gaza. And Iran's a large country. People can spread out, etc. I don't think that in the immediate future there is a humanitarian crisis in Iran. In Israel, on the other hand, there are hundreds of thousands of Israelis who want to leave the country and escape the bombing, except that the Israeli government has closed down any flights any flights leaving Israel. So no Israelis are allowed to fly out of the country. Basically, Israel is holding its 10 million citizens hostage. If they lift that ban, I think you'll find hundreds of thousands of Israelis leaving the country.
All right. Naim, Jeenah, thank you so much for your time and giving us your insights.